What if everything you've ever wanted, the peace, the purpose, the breakthrough you've been desperately chasing, has been just beyond your reach because you've been living entirely for yourself? I know that sounds harsh, maybe even impossible to accept, but stay with me until the end of this video, because what you're about to discover might completely transform not just how you pray, but how you experience every single moment of your existence. For most of your life, you've been operating under a belief system that seems perfectly logical. Identify what you need, ask God for it, work toward it, and eventually receive it. Your prayers have become shopping lists of personal desires. Fix my finances, heal my body, change this person, open that door. You've poured your heart into these requests, believing that the intensity of your asking somehow measures the depth of your faith. But here's the uncomfortable truth that nobody wants to talk about. This entire approach might be the very thing blocking you from receiving what you're seeking. Has this ever happened to you? You pray with everything you have for a specific outcome, yet the situation somehow gets worse instead of better. You cry out for clarity about your purpose, only to find yourself more confused and lost than before. You beg for peace in your relationships, yet the conflict seems to intensify. There's a profound spiritual reason this keeps happening, and it has nothing to do with God ignoring you or testing your worthiness. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. The problem runs deeper than most spiritual teachings acknowledge. Every time you approach God from a place of personal lack, demanding that your circumstances change to suit your agenda, you're unconsciously reinforcing the very separation you're trying to heal. You're declaring to the universe, I'm incomplete. My life isn't working. I need something external to fix what's broken inside me. This self-focused consciousness creates an energetic frequency that actually repels divine flow rather than attracting it. Think about the energy behind your prayers lately. Are they coming from a place of trust and surrender, or from anxiety and control? Are you seeking to align with divine will, or are you trying to convince God to align with yours? This distinction might seem subtle, but it's the difference between remaining trapped in cycles of frustration and stepping into a completely different dimension of spiritual experience. What you're about to discover is how living for yourself, even in your most sincere spiritual practices, creates an invisible barrier between you and the divine abundance that's already flowing in your direction. But more importantly, you're going to learn what truly happens when you finally stop. When you stop living for yourself and finally release that exhausting grip on control, something extraordinary begins to unfold. The spiritual masters throughout history, those who penetrated the deepest mysteries of existence, discovered a hidden truth that transforms everything. They found that the most powerful state of being isn't asking God for anything at all. It's not about perfecting your prayer techniques or intensifying your faith so you can finally get what you want. It's about something far more radical and far more beautiful than that. What they discovered is this: true spiritual power emerges when you surrender every single thought, every personal agenda, every self-directed strategy, and allow God to literally become your mind. Not God as your divine assistant who responds to your requests, not God as some external force you're trying to manipulate with the right words or rituals, but God as your actual consciousness, your thinking, your awareness itself. This is the transformation from living for yourself to living as divine expression. Imagine for a moment what would happen if you stopped trying to figure everything out with your limited human perspective. What if you released your death grip on all those anxious thoughts, those controlling strategies, those endless mental calculations about how to make your life work according to your personal plans? The truth is, most of us spend our entire existence trapped inside our own heads, convinced that we have to orchestrate every outcome, manage every detail, force every door open through our own willpower and determination. But there's a completely different way to exist. What if, instead of all that exhausting effort, you simply opened yourself to receive divine intelligence flowing through you as naturally as breath flows through your lungs? What if you could access a dimension of wisdom that doesn't come from your past experiences, your education, or your careful analysis of situations? This isn't about becoming passive or checking out of your responsibilities. It's about recognizing that when you live for yourself, operating from your small, frightened ego, you're cutting yourself off from the infinite intelligence that's trying to guide your decisions, orchestrate your opportunities, and reveal the path that's already being prepared for you. If this resonates with you, subscribe and join this community exploring what it means to surrender self-centered living and let divine intelligence guide you. The impact of this shift ripples through every area of your existence. Behind the scenes, as you stop forcing outcomes and start allowing divine flow, solutions appear that your self-focused mind could never have conceived. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because understanding what blocks this divine intelligence from flowing freely is where the real revelations begin to emerge, right? I'm releasing control in the comments if this is starting to resonate with something you've been feeling lately. Here's what most people completely misunderstand about their spiritual journey. The divine isn't withholding a single thing from you, not the healing you've been desperately seeking, not the financial breakthrough that seems just out of reach, not the wisdom to navigate your most difficult decisions, not the peace that eludes you despite all your efforts. These aren't treasures locked away in some cosmic vault, waiting for you to finally say the perfect prayer or perform the right ritual to convince God you're worthy enough to receive them. The hidden truth is far more beautiful and far more accessible than you've been led to believe. Divine abundance, guidance, healing, and love are flowing toward you right now in this exact moment like a perpetual stream of grace that never stops, never pauses, never runs dry. The problem isn't that God is ignoring your requests or withholding blessings until you prove yourself. The problem is that your consciousness, when it's focused entirely on personal gain, on what you lack, on what you think you need to be happy, is tuned to the wrong frequency. Think of it this way. Imagine there's a radio station broadcasting the most extraordinary music throughout the entire universe, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This music has been playing since before you were born and will continue long after you're gone. The broadcast never stops. It's constant, perfect, always available. Now, here's the crucial question that changes everything. The question isn't whether the music exists. It's always there. The question is, are you tuned in to receive it? When your radio is turned off or stuck on static, the music doesn't stop broadcasting. You're simply not positioned to hear it. This is exactly what happens in your spiritual life when you're living for yourself. Divine intelligence is constantly transmitting solutions, opportunities, breakthroughs, and revelations directly to you. The broadcast never stops. But when your mind is cluttered with fear-based thinking, when you're frantically trying to figure everything out yourself, when you're operating from that desperate self-serving energy of, what can I get, what do I need, how can I fix this for me, you're essentially tuned to static. The transformation begins the moment you make this fundamental shift in your mindset, behind the scenes. As your consciousness changes frequency, you suddenly start perceiving what's always been there. It's not that new blessings are being created for you, it's that the obstacles you unconsciously built through self-focused living are dissolving. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because what happens when you actually tune in to this divine frequency reveals dimensions of existence that most people never experience. Type tuning in the comments if you're beginning to understand this shift in perception. When you truly surrender living for yourself, when you finally release that grip on trying to control and manipulate every outcome, something extraordinary starts happening behind the scenes. And here's what most manifestation teachings get completely wrong. You're not creating a new reality through force of will or positive thinking. You're not generating something out of nothing for your personal benefit. What's actually happening is far more profound than that. You're simply removing the obstacles to what has always been flowing in your direction. Think about that for a moment. Divine abundance isn't something you have to create, earn, or deserve. It's already moving toward you like a river that never stops flowing. But when you're living for yourself, focused entirely on your own agenda and desires, you're unconsciously building dams that block this natural flow. This is the transformation from human thinking to divine intelligence, from your limited self-focused perspective to infinite wisdom operating through you as its natural expression. The barriers you've unconsciously built by living for yourself, the anxiety, the control, the constant calculating about how to make things work out in your favor, these begin dissolving the moment you shift your consciousness. But there's something even more critical happening at an energetic level that explains why so many people remain stuck despite years of prayer and spiritual practice. When you're locked in self-focused asking mode, constantly petitioning for your personal needs, your entire being vibrates with a frequency of lack. It's subtle, but it's there in every desperate prayer, every anxious thought about what you don't have. There's this underlying current that whispers through your consciousness like a broken record. I am incomplete. I am broken. I am separate from what I need. And here's the revelation that changes everything. This vibration of lack actually pushes away the very ings you're reaching for. Think about it from a purely energetic perspective. When you approach someone from desperate neediness, they instinctively pull back. When you relate to life from a place of scarcity and self-interest, opportunities seem to mysteriously vanish just when you think you're about to grasp them. The universe doesn't respond to your words or even your intentions. It responds to your energetic signature, to the frequency you're broadcasting moment by moment through your state of consciousness. The impact of this hidden truth ripples through every decision you make, every interaction you have, every door that seems to close in your face. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because understanding what creates a completely different energetic reality is where the real transformation begins to take root in your daily experience. Put shifting frequency in the comments if this is revealing something you've been sensing but couldn't quite articulate. The transformation that occurs when you stop living for yourself and let God be your mind creates an entirely different energetic reality that most people never experience. Instead of constantly broadcasting lack and desperation into the universe, you begin resonating with fullness. Instead of that exhausting sense of separation, always feeling disconnected from what you need, always striving to bridge some impossible gap, you start embodying union. There's a quiet confidence that settles into your being, and it doesn't come from ego or self-help techniques. It comes from a deep recognition that shifts everything. What God has, I have. Not for my selfish purposes, not to serve my personal agenda, but as divine expression flowing through me. This isn't arrogance or some inflated sense of self-importance. It's actually the most humble acknowledgement possible, because you're finally recognizing that your good doesn't come from your own self-directed efforts, your clever strategies, or your ability to manipulate circumstances. It flows through you as natural expression of divine abundance that was always meant to reach you. The impact of this shift shows up in tangible ways. Decisions that used to paralyze you with fear suddenly become clear. Opportunities that were invisible to your cluttered, self-focused consciousness appear right in front of you like they've been waiting for you to notice them all along. Now, here's what surprises most people. The practice of stopping living for yourself doesn't require elaborate rituals, special training, or years of spiritual preparation. The transformation begins with just 10 minutes of your day. That's it. 10 minutes where you fundamentally change how you approach the divine. You stop treating spirituality like placing an order at a restaurant, rattling off your list of personal wishes to some cosmic waiter who may or may not deliver what you want. Instead, you sit quietly and say one simple thing within yourself. I'm now open to receive all that God is giving me. Notice what's happening in that statement. There's no begging for specific outcomes, no bargaining or desperate pleading for what you think you need. You're not trying to convince God to finally pay attention to your personal problems. You're simply acknowledging a profound truth. Divine supply is already flowing, and you're opening yourself to receive it. You're moving from the exhausting energy of self-directed pushing and forcing to the natural flow of receiving. Behind the scenes, this daily practice becomes sacred space where your anxious human thinking steps aside and divine intelligence moves through you unobstructed. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because what happens when you make this your daily reality demonstrates how surrender actua. Lee works in the midst of real challenges, real struggles, real life. Right. I'm ready to receive in the comments. If you're beginning to sense this shift in your own consciousness, let me share something with you that demonstrates exactly how this works in real life with real people facing real challenges. There was a woman named Maria who had been praying desperately for financial breakthrough for 3 years. Every single night she would pour out her heart in anxious pleas, focusing entirely on her mounting debt, her dwindling bank account, her fear of losing everything. The more desperately she prayed from this self-focused place of lack, the worse her situation became. It was like watching someone try to catch water with clenched fists. The tighter she gripped, the faster it slipped away. When Maria discovered this practice of receptivity, her first reaction was fear. If I stop asking, if I stop trying to control this, God will forget about me completely, she thought. But desperation had brought her to a place where she was willing to try something radically different. She committed to surrendering her anxious, self-centered thoughts and opening herself to divine supply without demanding specific outcomes for herself. For the first 2 weeks, nothing seemed to be happening externally, but behind the scenes, a profound transformation was taking place in her energy field. That constant knot of anxiety that had lived in her chest for 3 years began loosening its grip. A quick tap on the like button helps this message reach others who need it. Your simple gesture creates ripples beyond what we can see. By week 3, something remarkable started happening. An unexpected opportunity appeared through an old contact she hadn't heard from in years. A debt she thought was permanent got mysteriously resolved through circumstances she never could have orchestrated. Within 6 months, her entire financial reality had transformed. Not through her own self-directed thinking and planning, but through allowing divine intelligence to orchestrate solutions her limited consciousness could never have conceived. Then there's David, who battled chronic illness for 5 years. His prayer life had become exhausting and completely self-centered, an endless cycle of begging and bargaining focused on fixing his personal problem. The turning point came when he discovered he could surrender his thoughts about his condition entirely and stop living in self-focused fear. Instead of fighting symptoms with anxious strategies, he began opening himself to receive perfect health as his divine inheritance. Within a year, his doctors called it spontaneous remission. David called it learning to let God be his mind instead of living for himself. These aren't isolated incidents or lucky coincidences. They reveal a hidden pattern about how divine intelligence operates when we finally step aside and stop blocking it with our self-directed agenda. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic because understanding what actually happens during this process of surrender reveals the mechanics of transformation that most people completely miss. Drop divine orchestration in the comments if these stories are reflecting something you're experiencing in your own journey right now. Jennifer's story takes this principle into territory that most people find even more challenging than finances or health relationships. For years, she had been on her knees praying the same desperate prayer. Please change my husband, make him understand me, fix our communication, transform him into the partner I need. Every single prayer was focused outward, asking God to manipulate someone else, to force external circumstances to align with what she thought would make her happy. What she didn't realize was that this entire approach was reinforcing the very separation and conflict she was trying to heal. Her asking was broadcasting a message into the relationship. I am incomplete. He is wrong. We are broken. When Jennifer encountered this teaching on receptivity, something inside her resisted immediately. If I stop asking God to fix my marriage, it will definitely fall apart, she thought. But her current strategy clearly wasn't working. So, she decided to experiment with something radically different. Instead of trying to control her husband or manipulate outcomes with her thoughts, she practiced receiving divine love into her own consciousness without conditions or demands. The transformation started so subtly she almost didn't notice it. She found herself responding to him differently, less reactive when he said things that used to trigger her, more peaceful in situations that previously sparked conflict, genuinely more loving without forcing it or pretending. Behind the scenes, as she let God be her mind, instead of operating from her own anxious, self-focused thinking, the entire relationship dynamic began shifting. He started responding differently too, not because she was manipulating him, but because the energy she was bringing into their interactions had fundamentally changed when she stopped living for herself. This reveals something crucial about how divine intelligence operates. Here's what most people get completely wrong when facing any challenge in their lives, whether it's health, finances, relationships, or career. The automatic response is to identify the personal problem and then ask God to fix it for you. You focus intensely on the condition, analyzing every detail of what's wrong, and then you petition God to come in and change it. This seems logical, even responsible, but there's a hidden flaw in this approach that keeps you trapped in the eerie condition you're trying to escape. The breakthrough comes when you realize you don't need to treat the condition at all. You treat your consciousness instead. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because this shift from problem-focused thinking to consciousness-focused surrender is where most people either experience profound transformation or remain stuck in cycles of frustration. Type consciousness shift in the comments if this distinction is starting to click for you. When you start practicing this way, stopping living for yourself and letting God be your mind, there's a persistent feeling that overwhelms almost everyone, and it can be so unsettling that it drives most people right back to their old patterns. That feeling is this: you're doing absolutely nothing. The discomfort can be intense, almost frightening. Your entire life you've been conditioned to believe that you have to make things happen through your own effort, your own thinking, your own strategic planning. Asking feels active and powerful, like you're taking charge. Receiving, on the other hand, feels passive, lazy, even irresponsible. Your ego starts screaming at you. You have to think. You have to figure this out. You can't just sit there and do nothing. You have to make something happen. But here's the revelation that changes everything. That uncomfortable feeling of doing nothing is actually a sign that you're making real progress. What you're experiencing is the dissolution of your habitual self-directed interference with divine flow. For your entire existence, you've been operating under the assumption that you have to orchestrate everything through your own limited understanding. Now you're learning to step aside, and it feels strange, almost frightening. But the truth is, when you let God be your mind, you're not being passive at all. You're being receptive, which is profoundal. Active in the spiritual dimension. Behind the scenes, infinite intelligence is moving through situations, orchestrating circumstances, opening doors that your self-focused thinking was actually keeping closed. The impact of this surrender ripples through every decision you make, every opportunity that presents itself, every relationship dynamic that begins to shift. Now, here's the ultimate revelation that transforms your entire understanding of who you are. Your whole life, you've been operating from a fundamental belief that shapes everything you experience. You are a separate human being, disconnected from God, living for your own purposes, and trying to get things from an external deity who may or may not respond to your requests. This belief creates the whole paradigm of begging and pleading, positioning you as a spiritual beggar standing outside heaven's gates, hoping someone will throw you what you need. But here's what changes the entire game. You are not separate from God trying to receive gifts from an external source. You are the very consciousness of God receiving awareness of your own infinite nature. This isn't metaphor or poetic language. This is the hidden truth about your actual identity. When you surrender every thought and stop living for yourself, you're not getting something new that you didn't have before. You're removing the veil that has been blocking your recognition of what has always been yours. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because understanding how this identity shift ripples through your daily experience is where theory becomes lived reality, where concepts become transformation you can actually feel and measure in your life. Write, "I am divine" in the comments. If this truth is beginning to awaken something deep within you, if you've made it this far with me, I want you to know something. You're not here by accident. The fact that you've stayed through this entire exploration tells me you're genuinely ready for this shift in consciousness. You're not just casually browsing spiritual content. You're actively seeking the transformation that comes from surrendering self-focused living and allowing divine intelligence to flow through you. I create these videos because I truly believe these insights have the power to change lives, not through my words, but through the eternal truths they point toward. If this message resonated with something deep inside you, I'd love for you to join this community of seekers who are learning to move from separation, consciousness to divine receptivity. Hit that subscribe button so you can continue this journey with us, because each video explores another dimension of what it means to live from divine intelligence rather than limited human thinking. And here's what would mean the world to me. Drop a comment below saying, "This message was meant for me," so I know you were here, that you received this, that something shifted in you as we walked through this together. Your presence in this community matters more than you realize. A gentle tap on the like button helps this teaching reach others who are searching for exactly what you just discovered. It's a small gesture that creates ripples far beyond what we can see. There's a video right here that goes even deeper into how this surrender actually transforms your daily experience in ways you can feel and measure. Click on it, and let's continue this conversation together. I'll meet you there.